Hello, I'm Hope Logan. I'm an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. The quiet storm surrounding Will Spencer and Electra Forrester is far from over. And every passing day seems to pull their hearts in opposite directions, even as fate refuses to let them completely drift apart. On the surface, it appears that Electra is doing everything she can to convince herself that walking away is the only sensible choice. Yet beneath that determined exterior lies a heart that continues to beat for the man she has tried so desperately to leave behind. The pain of betrayal and disappointment lingers in every thought, making it impossible for her to forget the mistakes that shattered her trust. Even so, love has a stubborn way of surviving where logic insists it should disappear. And that lingering emotional bond refuses to fade, no matter how hard she fights against it. Every memory they created together echoes through her mind, reminding her of happier days, while forcing her to confront the heartbreaking reality that loving someone does not always guarantee a future together. As the emotional distance between them grows, the question becomes whether this separation will finally end their story or only make the inevitable reunion even more dramatic. Adding even more pressure to Electra's emotional struggle is Ridge Forrester, who firmly believes she deserves far better than the chaos that Will has repeatedly brought into her life. From Ridge's perspective, the situation couldn't be clearer, because he sees Will as someone whose reckless choices and inability to stay in control will only continue breaking Electra's heart if she gives him another chance. He has tried to reason with her, urging her to look beyond her feelings and recognize the painful pattern that keeps repeating itself. Ridge wants Electra to understand that sometimes the strongest act of love is knowing when to walk away before the damage becomes irreversible. His advice comes from genuine concern rather than judgment, but emotions rarely follow reason, especially when love has taken such deep root inside someone's heart. Although Electra listens carefully to every warning Ridge offers, she quietly realizes that moving on is far easier to say than to accomplish. The heart refuses to obey simple commands, and despite everything that has happened, she cannot simply erase the powerful connection she still feels whenever she thinks of Will. Meanwhile, Will Spencer finds himself trapped inside an emotional prison of his own making, forced to confront the painful consequences of the decisions that pushed Electra away. Every moment without her feels heavier than the last, leaving him increasingly desperate as the silence between them stretches further with each passing day. He understands that Electra has every reason to keep her distance, yet that realization does little to soften the loneliness that now surrounds him. The absence of the woman he loves creates a hollow emptiness that becomes harder to ignore, and as heartbreak settles into his daily life, he begins searching for anything capable of easing the emotional pain. Unfortunately, loneliness often clouds good judgment, especially when someone vulnerable appears offering comfort at exactly the right moment. As Will struggles to accept the possibility that Electra may truly be gone forever, another unexpected connection quietly begins moving closer into his life. That connection comes in the form of Melissa Dillon, whose own complicated emotional journey has already revealed where her heart truly lies. Not long ago, Dillon found herself caught in an intimate moment with RJ Forrester, and for a while, it appeared that the two were headed toward taking their relationship to the next level. The attraction between them was undeniable, and the emotional tension built steadily as RJ attempted to convince her to fully surrender to the moment they were sharing together. Yet, when everything seemed ready to cross that final line, Dillon hesitated. Something inside her refused to move forward, and despite how close they came, she ultimately chose to stop before making a decision she wasn't completely certain about. That single choice revealed a truth she could no longer ignore, because deep inside, RJ was never truly the man she wanted. Her heart had been quietly pointing towards someone else all along, and that someone was Will Spencer. Now, with Electra continuing to keep her distance and Will sinking deeper into heartbreak, Dylan may finally see the opportunity she has been waiting for. If Will reaches the painful conclusion that Electra has closed the door on their relationship forever, the temptation to seek comfort elsewhere could become impossible to resist. In moments of emotional devastation, people often make decisions driven by loneliness instead of clarity, and Will may convince himself that moving on is the only way to survive the pain. Dylan's presence could offer exactly the kind of warmth and understanding that he desperately needs, creating the perfect conditions for emotions to spiral into unexpected passion. What begins as an attempt to soothe a broken heart could quickly evolve into something far more intimate, even if neither of them fully understands the consequences waiting just beyond that emotional escape. For a brief moment, it may feel like healing, but beneath the surface, destiny could already be preparing a devastating twist that neither of them sees coming. Just when Will begins believing that his future with Electra has completely slipped away, fate may decide to intervene in the most heartbreaking way imaginable. After wrestling with her emotions and reflecting on everything they once shared, Electra could finally realize that, despite the hurt, she isn't ready to give up on the love that still lives inside her heart. Hope may quietly replace despair as she gathers the courage to visit Will, believing that perhaps there is still one final chance to repair what has been broken. Filled with nervous anticipation, she could make her way to the beach house, imagining an honest conversation that might finally allow them to leave the past behind and begin again. Every step toward that reunion would be fueled by fragile optimism, the kind that only exists when someone risks everything for love. But sometimes, destiny waits until hope burns brightest before delivering its cruelest blow. Instead of finding the reconciliation she dreamed about, Electra could walk through the door only to discover Will sharing an intimate moment in bed with Dylan, creating the kind of unforgettable shock that changes everything in an instant. The emotional devastation of such a discovery would ripple through every life involved, transforming one impulsive decision into consequences that none of them can escape. For Will, the realization would arrive almost immediately, as regret crashes over him with overwhelming force, leaving him wishing he had simply waited a little longer for Electra to return. A single moment of weakness could destroy the very future he had been longing to rebuild, proving once again how quickly heartbreak can lead people toward irreversible mistakes. For Electra, witnessing that painful scene would feel like undeniable confirmation that Ridge had been right all along, even if the truth behind the situation is far more complicated than it first appears. The heartbreaking misunderstanding could shatter whatever fragile hope remained between them, replacing possibility with unbearable disappointment. As summer heats up, the growing chemistry between Will and Dylan threatens to ignite even more emotional chaos, promising fresh complications, painful choices, and explosive consequences that could forever reshape the future of every relationship caught in its path. The sparks flying between Will and Dylan may begin as comfort during a lonely season, but they could ultimately become the very fire that changes everything on The Bold and the Beautiful. The emotional shock of that imagined discovery would not simply end with tears or angry words. Instead, it would leave behind a silence so heavy that every dream Will and Electra had once shared would suddenly feel painfully out of reach. In a single, devastating instant, months of love, hope, forgiveness, and second chances could disappear beneath the crushing weight of misunderstanding and unfortunate timing. Will would likely stand frozen, realizing too late that the comfort he sought during his darkest moment had become the very thing capable of destroying the future he still wanted with Electra. Every decision that had led him to that point would replay endlessly in his mind, each memory serving as another painful reminder that heartbreak often pushes people toward choices they later wish they could erase. For Electra, however, explanations might no longer matter. The image before her eyes would speak louder than any apology, leaving her convinced that the man she never truly stopped loving had already chosen someone else. The cruel irony of the situation is that Electra's own heart never completely let go of Will, no matter how determined she tried to be. Ridge Forrester's advice echoed constantly in her thoughts, reminding her that she deserved peace instead of endless disappointment. Yet every attempt to move on seemed to bring her right back to the memories she couldn't forget. Love is rarely logical, and despite every secret, every mistake, and every emotional wound Will had caused, the powerful connection between them refused to disappear. That lingering affection is precisely what makes the possibility of this heartbreaking encounter so emotionally devastating. Just as Electra finally gathers the courage to believe that their story deserves one last chance, fate threatens to place an impossible obstacle directly in front of her. It would become the kind of moment that changes lives forever, not because love disappeared, but because timing once again proved to be their greatest enemy. Meanwhile, Melissa Dillon may find herself caught in an emotional whirlwind she never fully anticipated. While her growing closeness with Will could begin as an effort to comfort a lonely man struggling through heartbreak, emotions have a way of becoming far more complicated once genuine feelings enter the picture. Dillon has already shown that she isn't willing to give herself completely to someone who doesn't truly have her heart, as evidenced by the moment she ultimately stopped things from going too far with R.J. Forrester. That hesitation revealed where her emotions genuinely belonged, and now those feelings could finally pull her toward the man she has wanted all along. If Will turns to her believing Electra is gone for good, Dillon may see an opportunity to build something real, instead of living with unanswered hopes. Yet, even if happiness briefly appears within reach, the shadow of Electra's unfinished love story would continue hanging over everything, threatening to complicate every step they take together. As the summer unfolds, the emotional temperature on the Bold and the Beautiful appears ready to rise alongside the California sunshine. Relationships that once seemed stable may begin to fracture, while unexpected connections promise to send powerful shockwaves through the lives of everyone involved. Will and Dillon's growing bond has the potential to ignite a completely new chapter, but every spark between them also carries the risk of burning bridges that can never be rebuilt. Electra's uncertain heart remains the biggest question of all, because despite everything that has happened, she still hasn't completely closed the door on the future she once imagined with Will. Whether love ultimately survives or crumbles beneath another heartbreaking misunderstanding remains to be seen. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Every choice these characters make from this point forward could reshape their futures in ways none of them are prepared for, ensuring that the emotional drama, painful twists, and unforgettable confrontations are only just beginning. With new complications brewing, old feelings refusing to fade, and passions threatening to erupt at any moment, viewers should prepare for a season filled with heartbreak, regret, unexpected romance, and the kind of unforgettable emotional moments that only the Bold and the Beautiful can deliver.